faithfully conveying value, exploring global literary treasures. Hi, this is Sally's Book Talk. Today we're diving into Strangers at the Gate by renowned American historian Frederick Wakeman. The subtitle of this book is Social Unrest in South China from 1839 to 1861. And through this book, you'll grasp a crucial framework for understanding modern Chinese history, the impact response theory. When we think of modern China, images like the Treaty of Nanjing or Hong Kong's cession often come to mind, events marking China's forced integration into global systems. But China's response to these external pressures wasn't just passive submission. These challenges actually catalyzed China's modern transformation and shaped subsequent historical developments. From the Taiping Rebellion to Zheng Guofan's Hunan army, even the Qing dynasty's collapse was intertwined with foreign influences. So, when facing modern history's complexity, is there a unifying framework to understand its century-long evolution? The answer lies in John Fairbank's impact response theory, proposed by this eminent American scholar. This theory posits that Chinese culture's remarkable stability required external shocks to drive progressive change. Strangers at the Gate applies this framework to examine South China's resistance during the Opium Wars era. How did these confrontations transform South China's social structures? And how did these changes propel Guangdong toward modernization? Here, Gate metaphorically represents Guangdong's coastal cities like Guangzhou, while strangers symbolize Western imperialists. Foreign impacts at China's Gate inevitably triggered domestic responses. This dynamic became the engine of China's modern historical development. After this exploration, you'll gain practical understanding of applying this theoretical framework. Now let's examine the book's content through three key perspectives. First, how the Opium Wars impacted South China's social fabric. Second, what lingering effects did the Opium Wars leave on South China? Third, how did South China society respond when facing the Second Opium War while still processing previous impacts? Let's start with the first point, how the Opium Wars outbreak initially impacted South China. Two pivotal events demand our attention here. The first is the well-known Sun Yuanli anti-British incident. But let's delve deeper into this event's full context. In 1841, the second year of the war, British naval forces blockaded Guangzhou's port and government offices. Chinese authorities employed dual strategies, stalling through negotiations while organizing military resistance. Despite overwhelming British superiority, local forces persisted until the British lost patience and decided to capture Guangzhou. On May 25, 1841, British commander Hugh Gough captured 5 strategic forts north of Guangzhou. So, 2 days later, as Gough prepared to attack Guangzhou, he received orders from Captain Charles Elliot, Britain's chief superintendent. Guangzhou's authorities offered 6 million silver dollars as ransom to halt the British advance, terms Elliot accepted. Though Gough considered this decision dangerously compromising, he dutifully stood down. However, idle troops inevitably faced discipline challenges. With Guangzhou inaccessible, some soldiers began harassing nearby villages. On May 29, 1841, British troops entered Donghua village near Sanyanli, attempting to assault a local woman. This atrocity ignited fierce local resistance. Villagers armed themselves with farming tools and mobilized neighboring communities against the British. The next day, these forces gathered on a hill near the British camp, confronting the invaders. The crowd swelled to around 7,000, some armed with firearms. This reinforcement greatly boosted Sun Yanli villagers' morale. They courageously charged forward under British gunfire. As fighting intensified, a sudden mountain storm drenched British gunpowder. In the chaos, British forces suffered 1 death and 15 injuries. News of this victory drew over 10,000 reinforcements. Furious, Gough threatened Guangzhou's governor to resume bombardment. Fearing British retaliation, the governor forcibly dispersed the crowd. This became known as the Samuan Lee incident, a minor footnote in British records, but neither Elliot nor Goff mentioned it in official dispatches. For Guangdong, this marked the first major clash between local society and foreign forces. The incident triggered three profound consequences across the region. First, it sparked mass organization of local militias Tuanlian across Guangdong. These militias were locally organized forces led by educated gentry, retired officials, clan elders, and wealthy merchants. Membership included peasants, landless drifters, and mercenaries motivated by payment. The incident demonstrated people's collective power against foreign forces. This inspired widespread militia organization aiming to expel the British. Second, it fueled intense xenophobic sentiment against foreigners. This anti-foreignism stemmed from Confucian worldview and practical fears. Confucian tradition viewed non-adherents as barbaric pleasure seekers. British military successes transformed this contempt into concrete fear. People feared invaders would commit robbery, rape, and all manner of atrocities. Second, Guangdong's unique cultural environment fostered strong local pride and identity. After Sanyan Li, Cantonese realized their collective power might preserve cultural integrity, igniting communal fervor. Anti-foreign posters explicitly declared, "Guangzhou is civilized land. You foreign rats and demons aren't worthy to enter." The Sanyuanli conflict also bred anti-government sentiment in Guangdong. Still, local militias defeated the British at Sanyuanli. The government unexpectedly mediated for the barbarians, damaging public trust. First critique. The government's weakness forced reliance on civilian defense. Second suspicion. Officials might be colluding with foreigners. These criticisms trapped the government. Any compromise appeared treasonous. Thus concludes San Yuanli's triple impact. Western aggression triggered Guangdong's forceful response. The militia movement, xenophobia, and eroded governance formed a response template to Western pressures. These consequences grew more significant as the Opium War concluded. Public criticism of perceived government collusion began shaping Qing foreign policy. This brings us to the second major event, the anti-city entry movement. City refers to Guangzhou. The movement opposed foreign residents within city walls. In 1842, the Qing government signed the Treaty of Nanjing, ending the Opium War. Pre-treaty, foreigners could only trade in Guangzhou's outer merchant houses. The treaty mandated Guangzhou's opening to British residents and families. But whether to permit urban settlement became contentious. Translation limitations caused treaty interpretation conflicts regarding residential access. This communication breakdown resulted from decades of mutual misunderstanding. Pre-war communication between Qing officials and British representatives was severely strained. Despite British efforts, their limited understanding of Qing bureaucracy hindered proper protocol. They initially addressed letters to imaginary Qing prime ministers mirroring British governance. Qing officials avoided direct contact until military escalation forced imperial intervention. The Treaty of Nanjing finally established direct diplomatic channels through imperial commissioners. This treaty resolved Britain's previous diplomatic exclusion. It established diplomatic parity, elevating Britain from tributary state status. Future disputes required central government mediation, not local officials. Guangzhou's accessibility thus became urgent diplomatic business. Imperial Commissioner Qing emerged as key negotiator, leader of the appeasement faction. What was the appeasement faction? Officials advocating foreign accommodation to maintain stability. Qing had negotiated both Nanjing Treaty and subsequent trade agreements. As Guangdong Guanxi Viceroy, he centralized foreign affairs management. This established precedent conclusion for southern viceroys handling foreign relations.